It's all about purpose, but it's not just purpose, it's the fuel behind the purpose.
The shifting moment for almost anyone listening right now will be what you believe about yourself, right? We're our own worst enemies quite often, right? You remember as a child just how you would dream being an astronaut, being etc. And you just go through all of these things. No one ever told you couldn't do it.
What in your life is really holding you back?
Scarcity, I'm telling you, is a construct. And right now, it's a mental limitation that you have. If you want infinite abundance, there's infinite abundance for you right now. If you believe it, it will happen.
And what you need to do before you find the success that you deserve.
I don't have to be brilliant. I didn't talk about, by the way, how much knowledgeable, skilled, discipline, nothing. I just said, you believe in you and you prioritize making it happen.
I feel like I need to read some of this because you know what? I know you really well, but our listeners might not. So I'm just going to read a little bit of your bio. More than 35 years in the financial services. You're one of the most influential visionaries in the industry today. That is the truth. You are a visionary, and you can actually see where leaders need to go, and then you not only show them the path and give them the vision, but give them the tools to implement, help them create their own vision. This is all in my own words. It's not in your bio. And you know what? In 2002, you created XINNIX, which is an Academy of Excellence, and boy, is that not the truth, an Academy of Excellence. And for the last 21 years, you have trained, I'm going to say, thousands of people across America, and you have been recognized as one of Atlanta's most influential female business owners, top female entrepreneurs, Roaring 20 Award, National Association of Women in Real Estate. You know what? We could take up the whole podcast just reading your list of accomplishments, Casey. But once again, I am honored to have you join the podcast. In our Wimp to Warrior, what we do, Casey, is we talk about mindsets and how can you go from wimping out, and we don't use wimp as a noun. We use it as a verb. You know, we're not calling anybody a wimp, but we have all, even you, Casey, probably, I mean, you may have to go back some decades, but we've all wimped out. Even Navy SEALs have wimped out on different things. And what we want to do is share with our listeners the 7 mindsets that can help take you from wimp to warrior, and you can do it in 52 days. And those mindsets are purpose, passion, possibility, having a plan, setting priorities, persevering, and being a promise keeper. And so we're going to talk to you today, Casey, because I feel like if there's anyone that you are an example of all of those mindsets of how you built a business. You're a top female entrepreneur, but you also help other people go from wimping out to being a warrior in what they want to do and giving them the tools to do it. So thanks, Casey, for joining me.
Oh man, what a privilege it is to be put into that category of a warrior. And I just love how you're giving back right now, Louise. You get energy and you get wisdom, but the power of influence that you have right now by just bringing on different guests, I just want to applaud you and say thank you for giving me this few minutes to just share any of the wisdom that I've been given by other people, because we're all a product of the people that have been around us, the things we read, what we listen to, how we spend our time, and I'm just a blessing because of others.
Tell us a little bit about the beginning of XINNIX. You haven't always had this company. You've had it for 21 years, but what inspired you to create this Academy of Excellence for several different professions, Casey?
You know, I think I got to tell you, anybody listening in, hopefully they can relate. There's a moment in your life, a pivotal moment where you find your purpose. And I had a pivotal moment. I was a salesperson, very successful, really blessed beyond all measure. I had achieved greatness in my mother's eyes, right? I had a home, I had cars, I had all the financials I could want. But I had this moment where I walked into a room. I mean, this is the real story of how it all got started. I walked into a room of six guys who were all being trained. And they were being trained in their profession. And again, I'm one of the top guys. I walk in and I decide to challenge these 6 guys with questions that I knew clients would ask them and that they needed to know. Now, they had been in this room for like months. So I walked in just having a little fun with them and saying, hey, what would you do under this scenario, this scenario? And I gave all these scenarios, and, I had these blank stares. They couldn't answer it. And I just went, okay. And again, it was this moment. I just said, meet me at 6:30 in the morning and I'll teach you. Now, I had a school teacher mama growing up. She's a little Puerto Rican mama. She talked like this. She said, let me tell you something, Casey, right? She didn't want me to be a school teacher because she didn't want me to have the limited income and lifestyle that, unfortunately, she had to overcome in her life, being widowed, and my father passed early, but she was widowed with 5 kids, struggled with her income. So she told me, don't be a teacher, because I wanted to be just like her. And so I listened to my mama. So I went into sales and knowing I had unlimited potential. So here I am in a room at 6:30 in the morning, all of a sudden having this moment going, I'm teaching. And I'm seeing these salespeople leaning in and like really wanting to learn what I was sharing with them. And it went off really well that day. And I walked out of the room and I'm like, that is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so all of the years of hard work and learning how to sell and perfecting the trade, I felt like it was my calling to share the wisdom that I had gained and that I had a skill set to be able to impact others. So that was sort of from that day, I don't know, it was probably another few years before I actually said, this is what I'm going to do for a living. And I'm going to open a company. So it wasn't just an immediate moment, but it certainly, that was the pivotal moment where I felt like I was called to do what I'm doing today. So that's sort of the origin of XINNIX 21 years ago.
Casey, I've been friends with you for over 2 decades. And that's the first I knew what you just shared with me. And it's interesting that the very number one mindset that I teach is purpose. That's the number one mindset. If you remember, I went through that list, was purpose. And the second one being passionate about it. And you got fired up when you began to teach. And it's so interesting is that call that was early in your life, that, you thought it was because your mother was a teacher, but actually the call to teach was on your life. It was just a little, God had a little different way he was going to put you. It wasn't going to be in a classroom of second graders. I would say, thank God.
Yeah, well,
I'm thankful for all the school teachers out there. And what you said is so true because they don't make nearly enough money for the amazing, what a responsibility is on the school teachers of this country, teaching our young children.
My mama, when I finally opened up a school, right, for adults, if you will, a training academy and really a development academy, I resonated immediately when someone said that they had changed and that their kids had noticed. And I'm like, okay, so I am teaching children. If I can teach their parents and if I can help their parents find purpose, because I do believe if you are living every day and you're listening right now going, I don't have purpose. By the way, you'll know. You know whether you have purpose or not. Because when you wake up, you don't hesitate and you don't question what you're doing. And you'll have good days, you'll have bad days, but the purpose doesn't shift for me. I know that I'm in the lane of where I'm supposed to be with my life. And that changes everything.
So you have taught, you have literally been the leader, the instructor, that person. And I say thousands. Do you have a number over the past 21 years of people who have gone through your Academy of Excellence?
It's in the tens and the thousands, and if you consider the audiences I've also spoken to, it's over 100,000, right? And then when I think about the children that we've been impacting and the families, we're just blessed, really blessed. I got to tell you, one of the things that you mentioned, having purpose, it begins with that, without a doubt. But I think the evolution of my purpose, where I started, it was about what did I want to do? Because this is what I'm supposed to do. My purpose has shifted. This is what people need from me. Yes. And so it's not about me. It's really about everyone else. Like, what can I do to leave somebody better? And if you can solve that for yourself, you will absolutely live a life of abundance, a life beyond what you can even imagine. Because when you have purpose, everything else doesn't matter, right? The small things don't get in my way.
You know, what I found is that when someone seeks their true purpose, like the purpose of their life, because you can say, well, my purpose is to be a millionaire. Okay, well, that's pretty shallow. No offense, I'm not saying it's bad to want to be a millionaire, but your purpose has got to be a little deeper than that. Would you agree?
I appreciate people that have mission minded for money, because mine initially was that, having been brought from, I'll
Of
call it
course.
poverty with my
We have to
mother.
support our families.
But I think, if you're a student of your life, I always encourage anybody who's listening in right now, be a student of your profession. Like, really know your profession. If you think you know it all, that's when you know you don't. That's when you should be immediately going, okay, wait a minute. Am I really a student? Do I study what I'm doing? But I love people that have a mindset, hey, I want to make a lot of money. My question is, what are you going to do with it?
Exactly.
And if you're going to make it a lot, are you going to give it away, give it back, or give it in a manner that you can be proud of one day when you're sitting on the porch? I think we're in I don't know if you're asking me this, but I'll give you an opinion. We're in this me society, and it's all about me, 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 me.
Yes.
And it's a very selfish, self-centered society, and unfortunately, it doesn't lead us anywhere. The old days of help your neighbor, help another human being. And if you think about the military, they have it so well, Louise.
That's right.
Right? They all have a buddy. Nobody's on their own. They depend on one another. And if we can get back to being purpose-driven for others, you'll live a whole different life. Because when you're purpose-driven for yourself, you'll get lonely, and it's an empty place. I've been there, by the way, because my initial purpose was to make a lot of money. That was all I wanted, because I had been conditioned as my mother, who struggled so much. But it shifted for me when it was no longer about me. That was the pivotal moment for me to go, it's not about me. It's about living my purpose and living for others. And it shifts. It's a lot of stories I've gotten about how to, you don't live until you learn to give.
That is wonderful, Casey, and such a powerful point. And no, there's nothing wrong with wanting a lot of money. And when I said that, I didn't want anyone to be offended, because you know what, you can have these dreams and goals, like, I want to own this, and you want to own a home, you want to have a car, you want to do college for your children. There's nothing wrong with that. But what I was talking about on purpose, usually purpose goes deeper than the external things that we can get. It's an internal pull and draw, and you just said it. I am reminded of Letourneau, who started. He was a big, his first name escapes me, but Letourneau, who's big in the steel industry, became a multimillionaire, and his goal was to make enough money. Well, he started out like this. He tithed 90% of his income, and he lived on 10%. And so he helped build a lot of churches. He built a Christian university. And so his goal, and it wasn't like making a lot of money was his goal, but he made a lot of money, and he gave back a lot of money. So what do you think? And I love that you gave purpose, because that is I feel like the number one mindset, if you're going to go to Wimp to Warrior, you've got to have some fuel for that. If you're going to do a lot of work, and look, Casey, I have been to your leadership conference just a few weeks ago, and it's not easy. So you can do stuff, but you got to be fueled by something that's going to make you take the classes, implement the exercises, change your habits. And I'm not going to go to that question yet, but I'm just wondering, in the hundreds of thousands of sales professionals that you have trained over the past 21 years, what have you found one thing that seems to point that this one thing seemed to lead to their success? Is there a mindset that you feel like helped them to succeed?
100%. I think when I look at, and I've shared this in the classrooms, and I'll share it with anyone who's ever heard me speak, the shifting moment for almost anyone listening right now will be what you believe about yourself, right? We're our own worst enemies quite often, right? You remember as a child just how you would dream of being an astronaut, being etc. And you just go through all of these things. No one ever told you couldn't do it. And then somewhere along the way, we got a little older, unfortunately, I'd say somewhat a little bit more knowledgeable about our limitations that could be setting in.
Mm.
And sometimes we have
That's
friends.
good.
Sometimes we have friends, sometimes we have teachers, unfortunately, and sometimes we have parents who actually tell you can't, or you won't, or you shouldn't. And they stop us from dreaming. And when you stop dreaming, that's when you stop living. And that's when you start putting limitations on yourself. And if you're listening right now, I will tell you the number one difference between a top performer and a low performer is strictly what they believe about themselves. I was blessed by a very sweet mother who experienced incredible tragedy, losing her love of her life and my father when I was very young. But she had a mindset of overcoming. And she taught me in my mindset that, and I'll say it, she conditioned me. And I found out later how powerful what she had done to me and had conditioned me. And that was to believe in me. She goes, you will be the very best at whatever you do. You're special. You're amazing. Well, if you believe that, you'll live into that. And if you're listening right now and you go, well, I'm an average performer, or I'm an average salespeople person, you will be. If you say, I'm a top performer, and you really go, I am, deep in your soul, by the way, you are, because you're capable way more than you think you are. And I hope that that's the one thing people will walk away from anything around me. It's like, I'm more capable than I think I am. And I believe you are. And I always say, I'll believe in you until you believe in yourself, because I believe you can do greater things in your life. And so the belief mindset, and Dr. Henry Cloud, if you haven't read his books, Boundaries for Leaders, a great book. He actually talked about in the book the difference between the great and the good, right? The average and the extraordinary.
Yes.
And there were only two things that were different. Only two, which was really shocking to me as I read it and I got a chance to hear him speak. The first one is the easiest one, and it's what I'm talking about, and it's belief. He said the big difference between the greats and the goods are they believe. They believe they will achieve whatever it is. And I'm like, I always believed I'd be a top salesperson. I always believed I would be a successful person, no matter what profession I choose. I believed at my core I'd be the best. So wherever I did, I approached it with, I'm going to be the best. So I believed it at my core. Well, see, the second thing that Dr. Henry Cloud mentioned, that again, the difference between the good and the great believe it, and they prioritize making it happen.
Oh, yes.
When you go, wait a minute, I don't have to be brilliant. I didn't talk about, by the way, how much knowledgeable, skilled, discipline, nothing. I just said, you believe in you and you prioritize making it happen. And that is the difference between the greats and the goods. And so when I think about people that come into our programs, people that come around my team, and we have this privilege moment to make sure that you see it in you and that people need you to be great. Because see, we're all a community when you look at it. And why would we allow a human being who is either a friend, a client, anybody around me to be anything other than the best they can be? That's not a friend, by the way, if they allow you just to be. And I always hear people go, well, my best friends are the ones who let me be me. And I'm like, oh, well, make sure it's the best me, though. Okay, I want you to let me be me, but I better be the best me. And if you have self-limiting beliefs, I want you to grab a piece of paper, put a line down the middle. I want you to put what you think you believe about yourself. And then I want you to put on the right side what you want to believe about yourself. And that's where it begins.
Wow, you nailed it, Casey. You nailed it. I was just sharing with someone very special to me who turned 52 years old. There's a lot of people that think, well, I'm 52. How could, self-limiting belief, you can get too old. I'm too old to succeed now. And I shared with him, and I don't know if you know this, Casey, but I was 52 years old when I changed my life. I was 52 years old when I went to, David Kuiper, don't you? You know David Kuiper, and I went to one of his seminars. The CEO of Fairway, Steve Jacobson, actually covered the cost of me and one of my loan officers to go to David Kuiper's seminar, and we was spending a full day with David, who taught you systems, and we all need systems. And I actually reminded he's actually my son-in-law, and he worked for me for 22 years. God bless him. If you think about working for your mother-in-law for 22 years, but I shared with him, he turned 52, and I just sent him a text, and I said I was 52 years old. We were on the plane coming home from David Kuiper's, and I told you it's possible. Now, the hurricane had just happened. A lot of people hear my story about, in September 2005, I needed to make a change. That was my purpose. But I needed to have a possibility mindset. I needed to believe that I could. I needed to believe it myself. And I told Mike that day on the plane coming home, I said, it's possible. And that was a while ago when I was 52 years old, Casey. That was like over 18. That was over 18 years ago.
No, no,
And
no.
I
Year ago.
but 18, after I, got my purpose and I got fired up about it, got some passion, and then that possibility mindset that I can do it. And you know what? Steve Jacobson actually believed in me before I believed in me. And Casey, you're big. I've heard you say from the stage, I believe you can. Because that average people, there are no average human beings. We're all extraordinary. It's just something in the past, and you said this. Someone or something happened, or someone told you you weren't special, or told you you couldn't do it. And we believed them. But we have to overcome that with a possibility mindset. I love that, Casey.
I had the privilege, I was listening to a podcast. I'm always listening and learning, right? Student of your profession. And do you know how much we put weight on the past that's behind us and there's nothing we can do about it? But we weigh decisions. We weigh ourselves down instead of looking forward. If you would wake up every morning and simply just sit and imagine the possibilities without going back into history and into the past that somehow you've decided legitimizes all your excuses. If you would sit and go, not going there, and I'm only going to look for the future, it'll shift what you can do. Because the past is lying to you. It's allowing you to not be the best you can be. And some people get comforted by having the excuse as to why they are where they are. Let me tell you right now, Louise, I could literally give you every reason I should not be successful. I could go down, I could give you the pity party list for everybody and all the stories and all the reasons. And I'm thinking, but those were all building blocks to get me where I am. Because there's not a lesson. First of all, you don't grow unless you're uncomfortable. So if you're listening and you're like, I just want to stay in comfort, then you will never grow. And so you got to really get uncomfortable and realize the infinite possibilities that you have in your life when you choose to actually believe in yourself. And so if you're listening and you believe in you, you don't have to recreate the wheel. I remember when I joined a mortgage company, I was a salesperson for them, and I remember going to the top guy, Louise, going, okay, tell me what you do. Because remember, I believed I had to be the best. So I'm like, so I went to find the best in the entire company and said, what do you do every day? I just prioritized doing what he was doing. So if you don't overcomplicate how, I'm going to say easy it is sometimes to be successful. Now, does it mean that I had to, that I knew everything he knew? No, but I studied him. If he was the best and I wanted to be the best, I needed to learn what he was doing. Yes. And so when you think about the believe and prioritize, right? Believe in yourself. I had that part. Prioritize what it takes to get you what you believe. And I believed I was going to be number one. So I had to prioritize making it happen. And I did that by first studying the person, other people that have been successful. So anyone listening into your podcast, I applaud them because, Louise, they're studying. They're like, I want to learn, I want to grow. Yes. And they're leaning in, and that's part of the process to actually winning.
So I love that, and about the studying. So in the whole 7 mindsets that I talk about, purpose, passion, having a possibility mindset. The next 2, you kind of touched on it, but I believe the mindset of having a plan and setting priorities is crucial on success, because we can want it, we can think it, we can dream about it, but there comes a time when we have to step up and be a doer, right, Casey?
100%. 100%. You are a combination right now. The accumulation of your life is based on your habits, disciplines, and behaviors. Okay, so if you go, okay, my mindset was I wanted to win and I studied the top guy, right? And then I created a plan. Louise, you'll appreciate this. I had a manager one time who handed me a templated business plan and said, here, create one. Didn't tell me why, didn't sell it to me. Now, I'm a naive, young, I'm going to say stupid. I was 20, stupid. And he hands me a business plan. I'm like, he's not going to read it. So I do it halfway. I'll say half-assed. I just did it. And I put something stupid in the middle of it to see if he'd even read it. He never read it. But the joke was on me. Because the reason I knew he didn't read it is because I set him up and I said something in the middle of it. If you're reading this, then you'll call me and say blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I said something not nice. But the joke was on me. Later, I realized he missed. Now, first of all, he hadn't been through leadership, so I'm going to give him some grace there. He should have really explained to me why it was important, but I learned it later. Without a plan, right? You've heard it. If you don't have a plan, you're failing to plan if you plan to fail. You'll plan to fail if you fail to have a plan. And I'm like, okay, why didn't someone teach me that early? Without a plan, right? Think about it. If I'm going to go from here to California, well, actually, my husband's a pilot. You'll love it. I'm like, all right, sweetheart. So he's taught me, to go from here to, let's just call it Los Angeles. We want to go a straight line, right? To save as much fuel as possible. We want to get straight there, of course. Do you know that if you're off by 1 degree, what happens? You'll end up in the ocean. You'll never get to your destination. And so, of course, you want to plan. How am I going to get to where I want to go? And are you evaluating that plan? Now, so yes, I put together, by the way, you'll love this, right before I opened XINNIX, right? I know how important plans are. I created a 64-page plan of who I was going to serve, what products I was going to serve, what my pricing model would be, how I would position my company, everything I needed to plan a business before I just opened the doors. A lot of thought went into it. I'm here today because I believe that plan was a pivotal part for my success, because in the difficult times, you look at your plan and go, okay, how do we adjust, right? But you got to have a plan to know how to adjust. So your plan is your map. And if you're listening right now going, okay, I want to find your purpose. Absolutely. Prioritize looking at other people, right? What are they doing? And then plan specifically how you're going to do it. My daily routine, my priorities every day, all drive my plan of how I'm going to get there, right? So I took the plan and I boiled it down into the things that I can control. I had a gentleman tell me one time I was doing it wrong. I had a plan, right? And man, what a blessing he was. I'm walking down the hall one day. I'm bragging to him about something I'm doing, and I'm thinking I'm bragging, right? I'm sort of giving myself accolades, and he's like, you're doing it all wrong. Now, he was way smarter than me. I'd hired him. He was a consultant that I brought in. He was the president of a nuclear power plant. I mean, way smarter than me. And I told him what I was doing about setting my priorities, and he said, you're doing it wrong. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, Casey, you're asking yourself the wrong questions. See, the priorities that I was setting every day was, what are the things I need to get done? He changed the question, which changed my priorities. So if you're listening, this is going to be a big one for you, hopefully. Because I was asking myself, what are the big things I need to do every day, right? And he's like, no. Change your question. You're the owner of this company, right? I'm the CEO of XINNIX. I'm like, yes. He goes, what are the big things? Change it to, what are the things that will move the needle? He said, those are your priorities. What do you need to do today to move the needle in your company? And do you know that day, he asked me if I kept track of all my, big rocks. I said, I do. And he goes, well, go look at them. See how many of them will actually move the needle. See, your priorities have got to move the needle towards you, purpose. And so, and I'm going to tell you, that was another game-changing moment as I stood in that hallway and I looked at him and said, what do I need to do to move the needle? It was very different than what I had on my list to do that day. I had my priorities, but they weren't the right ones.
And, you're talking about owning your own company, but there's sales professionals that are listening to this. They go, well, I don't own my own company, but they own their business. They own their sales business, no matter whether they could be a real estate agent, they could be a title company, they could be a loan officer, they could be in financial services, but they own their future by owning the day. You just nailed it once again, Casey. I'm just thinking that's going to be my key phrase throughout this interview with you, is you nailing it, is what moves the needle.
What moves the needle? By the way, you can use that to what moves the needle in your relationships, what moves the needle with your children. And you think about it, I read something yesterday that I just stopped in my tracks and went, oh my gosh, because I have 2 teenage girls. And it says by the time they are 16 years old, you have spent 90% of your life with them. You only have 10% left. Make it worth it.
Oh,
I was like, oh my gosh, what will move the needle with my children? What time of quality time do I need to spend in the remaining years they're in the house, right? I'm always going to have them in my life, but in the house where I can still influence their little lives and I can still be part of their life and I'm still special to them. But when you think about what will move the needle in my marriage, right? It's not having, a date night would move the needle, spending time. I was at again, I'm a big student. So I brought this psychologist in one time to speak. And if any salespeople are listening in, right, and you have an audience can be anybody, whoever your client base is. Bring your clients together and give them education. So I happened to do that one time. I walk into an auditorium. This sort of is related to move the needle, especially if marriages. I'm assuming I'm okay to talk about marriages. So I'm married, by the way.
Of course.
See how long? Oh, don't tell him I said that. 22 years with my husband, 28 years. Love of my life, been blessed. As he keeps saying to me, you're my first wife. I'm like, stop it. I'm your only wife. Anyway, I was dating him. This will tell you something. I was dating him when I heard this psychologist speak. Now, the psychologist was speaking to my clients. So I'm in the back of the room, and I'd brought 3 different, somebody on marriage, somebody on their business. So I brought all these experts. Again, I was just educating my clients as part of the value add. So I'm in the back, and the psychologist said, if you want to have a healthy marriage, a healthy relationship, you only need to do 2 things. I was like, okay, I'm all about, give me 2 things. I can follow that. 2 things. He goes, spend quality time with them 2 times a week for 20 minutes. 20 minutes. I'm like, okay, 20 minutes, that's all? He said, but wait. You can't talk about 5 things in those 20 minutes.
Ooh.
And I was like, oh, okay. What are those 20 minutes? You can't talk about, you ready? Money, work, children, vacations you're going on, or other people. Now, so I wrote them all down. Again, I'm a little bit of an overachiever. I go see my husband. Again, I'm dating him at the time. We're just boyfriend, girlfriend, not even engaged. And I go, hey, I learned this from a psychologist. To have a great relationship with someone, you should do this twice a week. And I said, would you do it with me? He's like, sure. Let's do it tonight at dinner. And so we go to dinner and we're sitting there. I'm like, okay, ready? We talk all about the other stuff and we go, all right, 20 minutes. We're going to set the clock. Ready? Go. We looked at each other for a good 2 minutes trying to think of something we could talk about that wasn't those 5 things. And do you know, the first words out of my mouth, I'll never forget that moment. I went, do you know what I dreamed of as a little girl? And he goes, no. And that just opened the floodgates.
Oh, wow.
Really deep into our relationship, because society gets you get distracted, especially if you're married now with kids, right? So 20 minutes 2 times a week. That is a needle mover in your relationship.
That right there, that is powerful, Casey. And you know what? I should have said, I'm calling you Casey, but your nickname is Blade. Tell us about that. And all of it's your call sign. It's not your nickname.
Right.
It's your call sign. So tell us, XINNIX, you have call signs. Tell us about that, Blade.
Okay. Well, you know what? One of the things I've also learned, and this was a learning thing, is I had to have more fun in life because I was so serious about everything. I was like, I had to achieve. I believed in myself. I had to be the best. But somewhere along the line, and I remember the guy who taught me that you got to have some fun. And my husband is ex-military, and he's my hero. And he has a call sign. And one day, This is before I opened XINNIX. One day we were out to dinner with my husband and one of his military buddies, and they were talking about call signs, and they were making jokes about it. And there's 3 rules to a call sign, and I'm like, what are they? And they go, number 1, it's got to be short. 2, it's got to apply to you, right? And 3, you got to hate it. And so I'm like, so what are y'all's call signs? Now my husband's, I won't say it because he hates it so much. Well, that's in the military. So they gave me my call sign. I hated it, but it stuck, and it is Blade. But the reason they gave it to me and the reason I'll tell you why I have it is very different. But so I changed the rules a little bit. And I decided to always have a little fun in business. And this is, again, probably 30, 40 years ago when I finally said, maybe 35 years ago, I'm like, it's time to have fun while I'm achieving success and pouring into others, and not to take it so seriously so I can go to bed at night. Just know I'm just doing good, right? So the 3 rules to our call signs at the XINNIX are that number 1, it has to be short. Yes, it has to apply. And 3, it's got to be cool. You got to love it. So mine is Blade. So mine is short. It applies, and I do love it now. That was the name they gave me originally. But Blade really does resonate, right? I get to the point. I cut to the chase. Some people will say, I'll cut you if you don't do your homework. But we have a little fun with that. But I do believe that I don't let a lot of people slide. Like, come on, we got work to do. And so anyway, we all have call signs in the company. It's a lot of fun. We actually do a whole ceremony with the X. So, you are now deemed X. We never reuse a call sign if somebody leaves or passes away. We just retire them. And we have a lot of fun with it. So a lot of fun with it. But that's sort of in honor of my husband and just making sure we're having some fun.
Well, I love that you're going to have fun. You know what? A lot of people miss out on that when they're building their business. And so I would say to those listening, if you're not having fun, maybe you need to mix it up a little bit, because it's going to get to be a pretty boring life if you just all work and no play. So, Casey, everything's always been smooth sailing for you, right? You've never had any troubles. You've never run into any bumps in the road. It's all been like
Oh,
smooth for you, right?
you know what? I wish it was always smooth. I've had an incredibly rough patch. Um, I'll give you an example. There's been multiple. I remember getting into sales, Louise, not knowing what I was doing. I wasn't making any money. I was almost 2 years into it. I called my best friend, who's my sister, my oldest sister, and said, Sister, I think it's time for me to get out of this profession. And she said, and I'm a good student, she said, Sister, you hadn't hit 2 years yet. You don't give up. At the 2-year mark, you're gonna watch. Everything will pivot, because you're setting the groundwork. You're doing the foundation right now. You're you're planting the seeds. Now, I want y'all to hear something. She just told me at the 2-year mark. Guess what? I believed her. So I believed that I would be successful at the 2-year mark because she told me I would be, because I was planting all the seeds. But man, it was tough, Louise. It was tough. And I remember going, man, I don't even know if I can pay my bills. And I'll say I got luck in there as well. But, I won the lottery. I'm laughing. I won like $1,800. That was the lottery. I was one number away from $17 million. But anyway, we won't talk about it. So my mother had bought a ticket for me. And it was crazy. I have identical twin brothers. My mother bought 5 tickets. And no, I bought 5 tickets because I didn't have any money. So I gave my identical twin brothers each a ticket, and I kept 3. And one of my tickets paid $1,800. And that kept me to be able to pay my rent for the next 2 months at the time. And I'm like, I'm not supposed to quit. If you ask my children right now, Louise, right, I believe you got to teach your kids and certain values, of course. And if you said to them right now, Cunningham's never, they will finish the sentence for you, quit. Cunningham's never quit. And they will go, Cunningham's never quit, because life is hard. Life isn't going to be easy. And there's not a whole red carpet out there waiting for you to come out of the driveway and go, you're here. It's going to be hard. How you respond to it will define you ultimately. And Cunningham's never quit. When it gets hard, we figure it out. And if you say to them, when you have a problem, they will say to you, solve it. both my children. Without a question, when you have a problem, what do you do? And they will say, solve it, because you're going to have problems. Right now, the problem of there's scarcity out there. That's a construct. It's a mental construct.
Well, I was going to tell you, Casey, this is what I teach is the mindset of perseverance. And you're just, once again, nailing it by what you're saying. And I do know that you have, and I heard you speak on this, that where you said 3 words that could change your life was, I am responsible. It is taking ownership of getting through it. So as we are winding down, I just want you to continue on what you're saying, and to the people that are in this market, and if no matter if you're a real estate agent or a loan officer, there's a lot of challenges right now in the business, and you have an opportunity right now. Casey, speak to us.
I'm a product of a lot of amazing human beings that have poured into me, and everything I'm sharing is things that they've given me. And I'll share that there was a moment when I was a salesperson, the market shifted similar to how it is right now. But it shifted in a second. We didn't have time to prepare. We didn't have this amazing 2 years, and then all of a sudden it just fell off. It literally. And I just remember going, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And there were 2 things that happened in that moment. The first one, I went to the top guy that I told you that I was mirroring, and I was like just shadowing him, going, okay, whatever he does, I'm going to do, because that's what he's doing, and I want to be like him. I went to him and said, hey, should I change my goals for the year? Should I shift them way down? Because here's where I am. Now, I was doing 214 units that year. And I said, should I just do it down to 150 because the market has shifted by 40, 50%? He looked at me, and I just sat there and went, what? He goes, do you have 100% market share? I said, no. He goes, so why would you lower your goals? Go get everybody else's. I just looked at him like, that was the dumbest, easiest question to ask. No, I don't have 100% market share. He said, so go get everybody else's. Scarcity, I'm telling you, is a construct. And right now, it's a mental limitation that you have. If you want infinite abundance, there is infinite abundance for you right now. If you believe it, it will happen. Do you know that we did a study when I started the training for my last company before I built this one? I decided to not tell the salespeople what the real numbers were, like what they really should be able to accomplish. I inflated it like by double. And I said, oh, all rookies do X. And they went, oh, okay. And guess what? They believed me, and they did it. But if I told them they did Y, which is a much lower number, they fall into that. See, you've got to realize there's the law of reciprocity. The more you give, the more you get. Now, I don't give to get back, but man, do I get back. I get back by just a thank you, by I appreciate you, right? But if you really take the law of compassion, the law of understanding, and pour yourself into other people, there is no scarcity. It will come back to you tenfold. Do right by others, and all things are possible. When I hear right now a salesperson going, there's no relationship there and they don't get any business, I'm like, have you been planting the seeds? Because if you really care about the others, you really care, there is no scarcity. There's plenty of people out there to help. Just do it every single day. Because what they don't tell you is that there's infinite abundance. Don't let your mindset hold you back. Take a piece of paper. Where are you today, and where do you want to be? Fold that paper back over, get rid of the one that you just said where you are, and just read it to yourself every morning. This is who I am. And yes, I'll assure you, you will knock it out of the park. And if you're not sure how, I'm going to tell you, make sure that you are a student of your profession, whatever it is, whether you're a leader, a salesperson, operations service, customer service, does not matter. But there's so much fulfillment when you know you're the best, and you know you're doing it with a purpose to help another human being be successful.